Colin Thompson launches a defamation lawsuit against Coffeezilla. CryptoTalk.fm. My name is Leister. I'm your host. If you didn't follow the saga, I'll try to summarize it in a few words or less. If you don't know who Coffeezilla is, first of all, shame on you. But Coffeezilla has done excellent work exposing various scams in cryptocurrency. That's why I'm talking about it here, including SafeMoon. He was arguably a large part of the reason that SafeMoon was brought down when it was. And then he's done multiple, like the Logan Paul business and others scams out there. I think he talked about Richard Hart on a distant episode, and then he talked about the car salesman on SafeFood. So he's done an excellent job with uncovering scummy artists in the business. But what people don't realize is that podcasting in general, there's a different shady side of podcasting. People don't know because they're not in it, but podcasting by its nature, you own the podcast show unless you partner with a larger player because you want the money and the ad revenue and the da-da-da-da-da. And so when you listen to certain podcasters, like if you go to a podcast service, and again, I'll try to keep it short, but if you go to a podcast service, the first thing they do is inundate you with certain podcasts they think you should listen to, basically, and it's people that have a lot of followers. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean they're any good. It just means they have a lot of followers. Having a lot of followers doesn't mean you're good. And it's up to you to assess the content and make your own decision. Same is true with mine at CryptoTalk.fm. You have to decide whether the content of the person speaking is worth listening. So you think about a Ben Shapiro, right? There are people that disagree with Ben Shapiro. That's what happened with the whole Candace Owens fallout. There's people that disagree with Candace Owens. That's the reason they had that issue, on and on and on. So PodcastOne was one of these large podcast, I'll say networks. And what they were doing was partnering with these so-called influencer folks or celebrity folks to spin up a podcast and entice people there. And then they would partner with ad companies in order to pitch you ads. And if you go to those large ones, they're pitching you ads like crazy. Of course, Leister, CryptoTalk.fm, does not run ads on my show. Point is, this whole ad share, and there's greed that's going to happen. Colin Thompson was at one point one of the big wigs in this PodcastOne business, and then was accused of some sketchy business with not paying some of the podcasters, starting with Jim Cornette, who has the Cornette Experience and other shows under his brand that he has. And he was on that, and they had moved away from it, but he was on that at a point. Now that started to fall out, and then Coffeezilla got involved because of like Brendan Schaub. He had some fallout from his show. Sarah Silverman, she had some fallout, and Theo Vaughn. So these are people that all were apparently ripped off by this guy. But Cornette was one of the first to bring it to light of what was going on. And then Brendan Schaub, I know specifically, was talking about it. And I think Brendan Schaub was really more, he didn't understand the business, and Sarah Silverman certainly doesn't. Point is, fast forward, and there's all this sketchy business. They essentially do a stock split, quote unquote. It's not really, but essentially this. Stock tanks and has all this issue. They're about to file bankruptcy. I'm told there's paperwork filed. In the paperwork for the bankruptcy, this is read out on Jim Cornette's podcast and I saw the images myself, that he's going to be filing defamation lawsuits against a bunch of people. One of them's Theo Vaughn, one of them's Jim Cornette, one of them's Coffeezilla, one of them's somebody I'd never heard of. Okay, a defamation lawsuit against Coffeezilla, a defamation lawsuit. If you go and look at what Coffeezilla said, and I recommend that you do, it's a good episode, about this whole Colin Thompson and everything, there was nothing but factual data put out about this business. And then he talked to people that were truly inside, but at the end of it, there was no defamation about this. He did make some comments about the character of the person, but that's not defamation because you share an opinion. It's not killing the business because he was already killing his own business. This only came out because of the failure of PodcastOne. It's when you're trying to do a defamation lawsuit, it's a really hard pill to swallow. Like you really have to justify why you think it's defamation. And that assumes that you're at the peak of success and somebody's saying something that is provably false, designed to tear down your business. What Coffeezilla was doing was simply putting out facts as part of damage that had already been done from PodcastOne because of the deal they did where they were trying to strong arm people into taking a bad deal. So I, in my personal opinion, do not believe, even if they do file a defamation lawsuit, I don't think it's going to have any merit. I don't think there's anything behind it because I don't think he's going to be able to prove truly that there was defamation in any of the coverage. Certainly not Cornette's. I listened to theirs. Theirs is very fact-based. They called names. They said this, but you got to understand, the thing was already on the decline. Everything was already going south. Everything was already going bad. I didn't hear anything myself that rises to a level of a defamation given everything was already going bad. Coffeezilla was very fact-based. He called some names, but I didn't see anything again that I would qualify as, defamation in my assessment of anything. So this is an interesting thing to hear him trying to go after Coffeezilla. And trust me, I think it was Logan Paul. Like he's had the threats before. He knows, he's had the smoke. He knows what it is. But I figured I'd call it to attention because it's a developing thing ongoing, this Colin Thompson business. And you got to think, man, this guy, he took a lot of money from a lot of people. And if you are one of those listening that's trying to get into podcasting, the one thing I'll tell you, you got to make a choice if you're going to do podcasting. And I think people that podcast because they like to do it versus people who podcast because they want the revenue and they want the money. The people who want the money, at some point, you're going to run into these shady actors and shady business. The people who do it because they like it, you got to accept that it's kind of going to be putting you in the red for your passion, for what you like to do. And you have to choose. That's just the reality of it, because it was turned into that type of a business. Didn't used to be that way. Before, it used to be kind of everybody can do a hobby and we can do these things. It turned into greedy actors everywhere, and that's what it is. And it's largely unregulated if you think about it. So that's what it is. Coffeezilla, allegedly subject of a defamation lawsuit. We're going to see what happens with this business. And I'd love to hear Coffeezilla's response to this crap.